We apologize for the technical difficulties, but good evening and welcome back to another edition of Falcon Update, live on YBTV. I'm Nate Harlacher.
And I'm Caleb Kukin. Riley Williams is live at the Larson Student Union to talk to one of the union employees on how the Super Bowl impacted business. Riley?
Thanks, Caleb. I'm here with supervisor of the union, Adam Barron, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the foot traffic. So for starters, what were you on yesterday?
Yesterday, the union opened right at 4 p.m. We were all set and ready to cook out pizzas, boneless wings, burgers, whatever anyone wanted to order. We had 3 orders, 6:15, and 6:30. A total of 19 pizzas, and then after that, it really switched all to grill, and it was grill heavy of our boneless wing special, which was 6 boneless wings for $5 and 12 boneless wings for $10. But that was almost like a ratio of like 5 boneless wings to like 1 big pizza order.
Did it end up being as crowded and as popular as you anticipated that it would be?
For about an hour, it was busy from 5 to 6 just before kickoff. But after that, once the game started at 6:30, it was a ghost town in here. We actually did less foot traffic than we thought we were going to do. And I honestly think it was because of Philadelphia Eagles being in the Super Bowl that a lot of people went home and went with their families and had other parties planned.
Yeah. Well, that surprises me a little bit, too. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, Riley. And Nate, that Super Bowl definitely was a good game to watch. I caught the second half of it yesterday, and I just want to say that play at the end of the game, I thought it was the right call, but the wrong time. It was a holding call, but I don't like to see refs end the decision of such a great game.
Yeah, I don't know how you make that call at that exact time in the game, especially with how good of a game it was from the beginning. 35-35 getting to the end there, it was just a remarkable game. So,
yep, definitely.
But back in October, student clubs held a pre-screening of the movie Till. Now that is February, also being Black History Month, Dr. Todd Allen brought his friend, writer, and producer of the movie, Keith Beauchamp, to premiere his movie Till for the Messiah students. Kelly Gainey brings you the story.
I'm here at Hostetter Chapel getting ready for today's double feature screening of the new movie Till, featuring a talkback session with the film's producer, Keith Beauchamp. Let's go check it out.
I was asked if there was a story that I would want to tell, what would that be? Emmett Till came foremost in my mind.
Devoting 29 years of his life to this cause, story, and project, Keith recalls how it all started in 1995 with a phone call to Mamie Till, Emmett's mother.
I picked up the phone again, called her back. She picks up. I immediately apologized to her, and she asked me, why did I hang up on her? And I told her, that, Emmett Till has been a very big part of my life for a long time. I was afraid to call because I didn't know what type of state of mind she would be in, and I didn't want to hurt her. I know she may be still mourning.
I think one of the things that's a driving force for each of us, which is part of our friendship, is a passion for people to know this history, our shared history, because we know how transformative knowledge of this history has been in our individual lives, and so we know then what that can do for other people, if only they knew.
Keith has devoted his life to bringing awareness of the injustice the Till family and many families like them have faced until all receive justice and peace.
Well, I believe that in order for a people in general to understand where they're going, they must understand where they came from. I'm a firm believer if we forget our past, history will repeat itself. And now you're seeing it happen before our eyes.
For YBTV, I'm Kelly Gainey.
SAGE, Messiah's Sexuality and Gender Education Initiative, took over Tuesday night's chapel in Hostetter. Co-advisors Hannah McBride and Beth Moshier took the stage to host What's Love Gotta Do With It, an event filled with personal anecdotes and research-backed evidence informing the attendees of the aspects of a healthy relationship, both platonic and romantic. SAGE advisor Hannah McBride discusses what SAGE hopes to achieve with events like these.
conversation about components of healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships, regardless of whether those are romantic, family, coworkers, peers, roommates, friends. And for SAGE, what we really want to make sure people know is that healthy relationships are important to us as people, but also to us as people as faith. And that's not limited to just romantic partnerships, and sometimes that's what we overemphasize. So we think it's important to integrate the conversation into spaces like chapel, as well as small groups and one-on-ones.
5 p.m. in the Loft, as well as hosts various other events just like this one throughout the semester. To learn more and stay updated, you can find Sage on Instagram at Messiah Sage.
SAB had a very exciting week this week, hosting the Vinyl Expo, Valentine's Day brunch, and bingo night. At the Vinyl Expo, students played and painted vinyl as well as competed in various vinyl-themed games for various vinyl-themed prizes. The Valentine's Day brunch roped in friends and couples of the like to enjoy a nice meal surrounded by those they hold dearest. Bingo night had one of the largest turnouts yet as students covered their boards and yelled his name-o in hopes of winning some pretty cool prizes. Hopefully you had the chance to check out a few of these events this week, and be sure to stay tuned right here on YBTV to find out which ones you can check out next.
Up next, we have Falcon Forecast, Campus Calendar, and much more.
And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Falcon Update live on YBTV.
A student would want to study the finance major here at Messiah for several reasons. Students here are working and practicing in a setting in our finance lab with technology that they're going to use when they leave here and work in the field. And so our students are certified in Bloomberg. In addition, in several classes, our students are actually performing consulting projects with local financial and investing firms.
I think the biggest thing that surprised me about coming for the finance major here was just the scope that you get in all the different classes. So anything from corporate finance to portfolio management and security analysis, you touch on everything. Getting into investment club was something I really was looking forward to coming here to Messiah. I knew from very early on I wanted to get involved.
There's nothing wrong with going out, being successful, making money, but not allowing money to have a higher place in your life than God. So our goal is to get our students started off on their career path quicker and better positioned than any of their peers.
I'm Lily. I am a junior, and I am a broadcasting and media production major at Messiah. I chose to be a broadcasting and media production major because as a little girl, I dreamt of being a TV anchor. There are so many opportunities you can have as a broadcasting major. Messiah is really unique in the fact that we have our own TV station, and it's student-led, so each week we have Falcon Update, which is a half hour, and then we have MC Live, which is a half hour as well. My favorite part is just being in the hustle and bustle of everything, and I'm really excited to just be creative when I'm putting together news packages or shooting other stories, just really getting every element of storytelling in my work. So we have a lot of faith-based projects. Right now we're working on one, it's called Faith Sides for multimedia storytelling. In pairs we're interviewing each other for 2 minutes about some aspect of faith. A lot of students from our major either intern at ABC 27 or WGAL. I shadowed one of my professors at a Hershey Bears game. The Bears are a local AHL hockey team, and through that experience I developed connections, and eventually I got a job there. So I run the Crossfire machine and the LEDs on game days. My freshman year at Messiah, when I first came, I knew absolutely nothing about broadcasting or media, and now I feel confident that I can go work at a TV news station.
Welcome back to Falcon Update. My man, Josh McLeaf, brings you this week's weather forecast. Josh.
Nathan, it's always good to see you. We have to stop running into each other like this. We have to get lunch or something sometime. It's just, we need to have a more non-professional relationship, I think. But we've had a really pleasant past couple of days here at Messiah. If you take a look at the temperature right now, we're sitting at about 48 degrees. We hit 53 earlier today, so very, very nice temperatures. And we've seen these for the past couple of days. We will get a little bit cooler, 34 as we move into the night, but besides that, we've been sunny with a few clouds and 0% chance of rain right now. And we have a pretty good forecast coming up for the rest of the week. But it is February, love is in the air. I know we're all worried about the forecast for tomorrow. So what's our Valentine's Day outlook? We'll take a look and, oh my goodness, well, looks like it's you and me. And a 100% chance of chocolate as well. In case you're curious, I really like the Andes Mints, the mint chocolate ones that you get at the Olive Garden. I love Olive Garden too, in case you don't have any plans. You know, we can maybe get together, but that's beside the point. On a much more real note, though, coincidentally, if we take a look at the rest of the forecast, our temperatures are on the rise for the next couple of days. If you take a look at tomorrow, high of 55, low of 41, and even warmer on Wednesday with a high of 67 and a low of 45. So these temperatures are increasing. Honestly, this is a forecast that I would expect for early March, beginning of spring. This is really a very, very nice forecast, except for some of this rain that we see. But I was walking over to the studio earlier today. The wind was blowing, the birds were chirping. I thought it was like late fall, maybe early spring. So very nice temperatures. But again, turning our attention to Thursday, some chances of rain starting in the afternoon, moving through the rest of the night, and then continuing through Friday morning, but that should be out of here by noon on Friday. And so again, we hit those temperatures of 60 degrees on Thursday and a little bit cooler on Friday as well, going back down to the 50s. And then we do drop below freezing again Friday night with a low of 24. But it cools down a little bit on the weekend, but it's still pretty mild if we take a look at Saturday and Sunday. Our high of 49, a low of 30 on Saturday, and then high of 56 and low of 38 for Sunday. But still pretty sunny, all things considered, and 0% chance of rain. So a pretty solid forecast in my opinion, and definitely take advantage of that warm weather as we stay for these next couple of weeks. And honestly, from what I'm seeing right now, it looks like those mild temperatures continue for next week as well. So I don't know. I think Puxatawny Phil might have been wrong about his 6 more weeks of winter, because we're definitely starting to warm up. With this week's Falcon forecast, I'm Josh McLeaf.
Well, it looks like I've got a date for Valentine's Day tomorrow. Well, besides that, Caleb, you said that you were in Florida this weekend, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the temperature is nice and warm in Florida, visiting my wonderful grandparents, and it looks like we're getting almost Florida-esque temperatures here in February. Speaking of February, Nate, do you like Valentine's Day?
You know, I kind of do, but, you know, I think we could be without it. But, you know, it's still a good holiday. You got to celebrate it. And speaking of that, Hayward Smith Cassidy asked Messiah students what they think. Hayward?
Howdy, welcome to Falcon on the Street. This week we're asking Valentine's Day, love it or hate it. Well, I mean, I love it. It's literally just free chocolate the whole time. Like, you just go out and people just start handing it out. They don't even know you. That's true love right there.
Valentine's Day, no hard feelings about Valentine's Day. I kind of like it. It's a good way to express how you feel about someone. And a great way to express how you feel about someone is a $3 candygram from the Ecuador service trip.
Valentine's Day is a pretty good holiday, but the better holiday is the day after Valentine's Day when you go and buy all the half-off candy.
What I think about Valentine's Day, I love it because it's something I can't attain.
I think that Valentine's Day is overrated.
Not a big fan.
Galentine's Day for the win.
It's okay.
Kind of indifferent.
Oh, love it. Yeah. I absolutely love seeing other couples be really cute with each other, and I love just how that makes me feel as a person. Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan. I think Valentine's Day is kind of overrated. I think if you're using it to, be with your significant other, great. But I think that can be made out any day of the year.
That was a lot of good answers. Personally, me, Valentine's Day is not really it. Signing off for Yellow Breeches TV, this is Hayward Smith Cassidy.
Kelly Gainey is in the archives this week. Let's see what Kelly has for us. Kelly?
Welcome back to the Vault, where I unlock Messiah's history 1 week at a time. This week, I decided to pay my good friend Derek a visit. Let's go to the archives.
Well, there's been a lot of miscellaneous items, stuff that doesn't really have a whole lot of relevancy, like photocopies of emails and calendars, despite there already being calendars in the collection. But super interesting things that I found are there was a picture of Kay Boyer and Ernest Boyer having dinner with Ronald Reagan, and I'm currently the only worker for that project. I did an internship in the fall, and I'm continuing as a work-study student currently, and I highly doubt I'll have it finished by the time I graduate. It's overwhelming.
Conclusion. I made a promise to Ernie on those painful days in the hospital shortly before he died that I would carry on the work that he so loved, and that God had placed not only upon his heart but upon mine as own. This book is just but a small testament to my desire to keep that promise. Faith, family, and public service are no easy task, but it's a special calling that God has for each of our hearts. Thank you so much for tagging along on my adventure this week. Make sure to tune in next week for when I unlock the vault.
Thank you, Kelly. Brandon Cruz is bringing us this week's campus calendar. Brandon?
Hello, Messiah University. I'm Brandon Cruz, and welcome to this week's edition of Campus Calendar. Let's take a look at some events happening around campus for the upcoming week. Tomorrow is both Valentine's Day and an in-service day, so there won't be any classes or chapels. Also, the Ecuador service trip team will be raising money for their trip by selling candygrams in the Eisenhower Campus Center from 11 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Each candygram costs $3, so buy one to wish someone you know a happy Valentine's Day. On Wednesday night from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m., MCFR is hosting a night entitled How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk in the Fishbowl. The night will focus on conversations regarding healthy relationships, and will have speed dating segments and, most importantly, free Chick-fil-A for the first 50 attendees. Also on Wednesday night, there will be auditions for the February Coffee House in the Union at 7 o'clock p.m., with the Coffee House taking place on Sunday the 19th. Thursday night is the opening night of the Department of Theater and Dance's production of Crimes of the Heart. The play runs through Saturday the 18th and will take place in the Poor Man Black Box Theater at 8 o'clock p.m. each night. Tickets are $10 for adults and $7 for students with a valid Messiah University student ID. Tickets are also buy one, get one free for opening night. On Friday night, the Asian Student Association will be celebrating the Lunar New Year from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock p.m. in the Union. There will be live performances from the Chinese Cultural and Arts Center, including various dance performances and others. Later on, there will be student performances as well and catered food. Finally, on Saturday afternoon, SIB will be hosting an excursion into Harrisburg. The excursion is from 1 o'clock p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m., and students will go to Broad Street Market and Midtown Scholar Bookstore. And that is all for this week's edition of Campus Calendar, and I hope to see you all at some of these events later on this week. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm Brandon Cruz.
Up next, we have PJ Rydell and James Hellman bringing you the latest on Messiah Sports.
Now that sounds like a good crew, so stay tuned and we'll be right back.
I grew up creative, always drawing. Legos, played a ton of Legos from the time I could start putting them together. When I got into school, I thought I was going to be a painter, and then I thought I was going to be a graphic designer, but it wasn't until I took my first foundations of art class, 3D design, where I was carving a salt block, just a little carpenter chisel, and I stuck it underneath the water, and it kind of started deteriorating, and I loved it, and it felt comfortable, and it felt right, and that's when I realized that 3D is where I belong. Sculpture is what I needed to pursue. If you feel that passion in your belly, if you wake up and you got to make something, if you grab the paper clip and you manipulate it into some form, or you're doodling in your sketchbook, or everything you do you see through a more creative side, then listen to that spirit talking in you and follow it. And for that young artist, it's hard and it's difficult, but you got to just keep on doing it. You got to just keep on doing it. We were all there. We want to hang out with you. We want you to look over our shoulder and watch us cut this piece. Ask us that question. Don't be scared. Everybody has that starting point.
Welcome back to Falcon Update right here on YBTV. It's time to get caught up on Messiah Sports, and I'm PJ Rydell.
And I'm James Hellman. While most of us were concerned about Super Bowl champions, Messiah swim teams put on a show of their own at the MAC Championships this weekend. The women's team dominated across all 4 days, capturing the MAC Championship, their 9th title in the last 10 seasons. The Falcons put up an impressive 1,400.5 points throughout the championship and come back with some new hardware, with multiple gold medals, the conference championship, and head coach Ryan Cowell's Coach of the Year honor in his first season with the program.
The men's swim team also had a solid weekend, finishing 4th in the contest. The men's team shattered a handful of records throughout the championship, as the team broke the program's 200 medley relay record, and Avery Barley broke the MAC Championship 100 back record.
While our swim teams battled it out on the road, so did our men's volleyball squad, where Mason Nisley gets us started with a milestone for this week's edition of the Falcon 4. Nisley prepares to receive the serve here. He's going to get into position, then the bump, and the spike down the line. As we're going to look at that one again, Nisley with this amazing kill, it would be his 1,000th kill of his career. While the Falcons would drop that match against Juniata 3-1, they got right back on track with back-to-back wins on Saturday to improve to 9-2 on the season. They'll face Elizabethtown next at home on Wednesday night.
Speaking of Elizabethtown, the wrestling team played host to the Blue Jays, where Cameron DeVille gives us our next highlight. As we take to the mats, DeVille duking it out, looking for a win here, And look at the redirection to eventually put his man down, gets on top. He would go on to win this one 10-2. Look at the redirection in the air. DeVille spending so much time there in the air and still finding a way to get on top and get the win. Unfortunately for the Falcons, however, they would drop this one 28-9 as they set their sights now on NCAA competition to wrap up the season.
Messiah basketball also hosted Battle of the Birds, taking on the Eastern University Eagles on Saturday, where Cole Fisher gives us another highlight from beyond the arc. Here you see Bryce Coletti driving with the ball. He's going to stop and turn Fisher. He's going to find him at the top of the arc. He's going to take the three and bang, puts that right in. Looking at that again, Fisher gathers it, composes himself, and hits it nothing but net. And unlike some other Eagles, the Eastern Eagles victorious in this one, defeating the Falcons 76-57. The Falcons have one last home game tomorrow night versus Stevenson.
James Hellman confirmed not an Eagles fan as women's basketball 2 faced off against Eastern, where Charlotte Milanese gives us our final highlight of this week's Falcon 4. As we take to the court, Faith Grula gets the pass to Milanese, who changes directions up top into the lane, makes it look super easy. Take a look at the replay again. Milanese changes directions at the top of the key and through 3 defenders finds her way to the hoop, as that gave the Falcons the 63-52 win over Eastern. The Falcons advancing to a stellar 21-2 record on the season with 2 games left to play before the playoffs, where they've already locked up the top seed.
With winter sports nearly wrapped up, it's time to look forward to spring sports, which get underway this week. Emma Dingus and Jorge Sobrano had the chance to get a sneak peek at one of those teams, the women's lacrosse team, as they get set for the 2023 season.
With head coach Heather McKay to talk about her feelings and expectations for this upcoming lacrosse season.
Yeah, I'm excited about the season because, you know, it's a new start and you never kind of know who we're going to be, who we're going to become. Expectations are funny because, yeah, I think they can distract you from what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. So it's kind of like seeing how hard the team is ready to work and then setting our sights high, but just getting
Unfortunately, some technical difficulties there, but yes, thanks Emma and Jorge for that conversation with the lacrosse team. Certainly looking forward to spring sports starting up this week. I know baseball had a scrimmage earlier today, and lacrosse getting set. The men's lacrosse home opener this weekend, and eventually we'll get women's lacrosse back home. That does it for this week's episode of Falcon Update.
But don't go anywhere because YB Tonight is up next. Be sure to stay tuned right here on YBTV.
We don't want our students to feel like they have to wait until they've graduated to start serving and meeting the needs of society. So we want students to have an opportunity to work on projects that meet real needs even while they're students in the program. Messiah students are exciting to work with because they understand that God has uniquely gifted them to do something, and they're excited to follow Him in that and to follow Him in their careers.
One of my best moments as a student here at Messiah was when I was traveling to Mexico with a collaboratory.
The collaboratory's business model is that it pairs student teams with either faculty mentors or outside professionals to work on systems that either care for the earth or help disadvantaged people around the world.
I learned so many amazing things about just cultural differences and how to adapt and work alongside, not just how to help someone else, but how to empower them to further their lives and also advance my academics in the process. So that is by far one of my favorite memories from Messiah.
Forests bring people together, feed the soul, and improve our well-being. Cleaning the
That's why the Arbor Day Foundation is working to replant millions of trees across the country. Visit arborday.org and see how you can help.
Good evening and welcome to YB Tonight. I'm your host, Jessica Fannin. Tonight we'll have a feature on a student-ran business, Brianna Kuhn, and we'll be showcasing her cup business. After that, we'll be interviewing Professor Brockman about the psychology of dating. But before we move on, let's take a trip to the farm for this week's episode of Beyond the Breeches. Let's take a look.
Hi, welcome back to another week of Beyond the Breeches. This week we're covering Kara Graves and her ducks.
So I started with 4 and then it eventually got to 16, 15, I don't even know how many I have. College rolled around back in 2022 and my parents were like, what are you gonna do with them? So then I started like looking for maybe like friends that would take them or like places I trusted, and there was just nothing. But Libby Curd in admissions, she made it happen. She found Kirsten, who like helps with the Oaks Museum. She connected us, and Kirsten allowed me to come up here and like build a whole pen for them and then just bring them up. Like the really tall one, his name is Iggy. He's an Indian runner duck. He's just a menace. He doesn't waddle, he just runs. And then the really big fat one is Frankie. He's like really sassy and like everybody loves him. Sometimes it can be hard to like, be like, oh, I can't come to dinner that time. I have to go take care of the ducks. In the beginning, I thought that was gonna be a lot harder, but now it's more like, oh, do you guys want to come take care of the ducks with me? And like, I almost never come alone. It's just become like a social expedition that I didn't expect.
That's all for this week's Beyond the Breeches. Check out next week for more.
Oh, hi. I suppose you're wondering what an A-list celebrity like me is doing in a place like this. You must know, I'm saving the world. Oh, hi, Beth. Yep, saving the world again. Did you know that 40% of all the food produced in the United States is thrown away? That means everything that went into that food, the pesticides, the water, the land, was all for nothing. Just look at this perfectly good food thrown in the trash. The pizza with extra Cheerios, these goldfish and Band-Aid tacos. And just look at this perfect trash burger. This pasta dog looks delicious.
You don't have to dumpster dive like Ed Begley Jr. to save the planet. Fight food waste by shopping smart and using what you buy before it gets trashed.
That's way better. Ooh, arugula.
Do your part and find out other world-saving tips at betterthaned.org.
Welcome back to YB Tonight. I'm Jessica Fannin, and I'm here with Brianna Kuhn, here to talk about her very own cup business. Brianna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. So what do we have here? We have some cups that you've made.
Yeah, so basically back in December, I was like, I was going to some craft
Forests
shows,
bring people
and
together.
I was like, this is something that like I really love and like really just like it's so cute, and so
They're
I
so
decided to
cute.
just like start making them and like see what would come out of it. So
Yeah. So can you tell me like some of the inspiration behind making these cups, like the designs?
So it started out where like I was just like scrolling through Pinterest and like seeing what I could find, and then I was like creating my own designs and just like taking it from there and seeing with like trial and error just like how like what would look best.
Right. So do you take requests from other students?
I do. So most of my orders are actually custom orders. So I get messages from friends, from family, and basically like send me their inspo, and then I take it from there and just finalize like the design with them and then create it.
That's awesome. I would totally buy one of these cups. These are so cute. I'm in love with this one in the middle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So so how did you like get into making cups specifically? Was this just like a way of like making art like you just like came upon? Like how did you come upon cups?
I don't really know. It was kind of just like a random thought I had one day, and I am obsessed with cups. I have so many cups, and like I'm always asking for like the newest like cup that comes out. And so yeah, I was just like, you know, this is like, it's like, you know, eco-friendly, and so it's just kind of like, you know, I don't know, it's just so cute.
So do you have like a favorite design?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I would say definitely like each one I create is definitely just like becomes my favorite one. So this one actually is my most recent one that I've made, and I think that one has topped it.
Yeah, that one definitely caught my eye when you brought it out, for sure. So how did you learn how to make these? Like what are some of the tools that you use to make these cups?
So I basically just watched you know, a bunch of YouTube videos and just like researched it to like see what was the best, like, you know, materials. And so I actually use a Cricut machine, and basically I use vinyl, and you lay the vinyl out and it connects to an app on my iPad, and you create the design and lay the vinyl on, and it's just Bluetooth from there, and the mat goes through, cuts out the design, and then you weed it out and transfer paper, and then you just put it on the cup. So.
Wow, sounds like it's pretty high tech. Yeah. So I just want to talk about like the business aspect of it. What have you learned from starting a business?
I think the biggest thing is just like patience. It's taken a lot of patience to, you know, trial and error, like I said, and just like time management, and you know, a lot of focus, and a lot of just like, you know, I have, you know, I have these orders and I have to get them done, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay, yeah. So I guess from that responsibility, what are some ways that you've grown personally from starting a business, like taking on this responsibility?
Yeah, so I think personally, I'd say that like I've grown a lot in like myself, and just like believing in myself, and like just having that like self-confidence of like, I'm gonna do this, and like it's gonna be worth it, and people are gonna love it. And so I think that's what I've gotten out of it.
That sounds inspiring. Yeah. Definitely. So for anybody who's thinking of doing the same thing, what are some tips that you have?
I would say definitely just don't give up. Definitely believe in yourself, and you know, the more you know, confidence you have, the better it'll go for you. And I think definitely just, you know, keep with it, and you know, stick it out.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely the case for most things in our life.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about like what are some ways you're hoping this cup business will grow?
I think just in a matter of growth, you know, I didn't have a lot of goals going into this. I kind of just like went into it really quickly, but I think for sure just like, you know, I'm only on Instagram so far, and so I think, you know, even having an Etsy shop or having a website eventually, like just like small steps, you know, here and there.
Yeah, taking small steps for sure. So what are some life skills that you've been able to apply to starting a business?
Life skills, I think, you know, that goes along with what I said earlier about just time management, and like managing that with school and being at college, and, you know, having my own life, and just things like that. Just really learning how to take, you know, the time that I have at school, and the time, you know, the however many hours in a day that like I have that I'm not sleeping, and just taking that and, you know, figuring out, okay, I have this to do, and then, you know, I have so many orders, and just like trying to figure that out, and just staying organized. And
is it difficult to juggle the responsibility of being like both you're a nursing student, correct?
Yeah.
So being a nursing student with so much work and running a business, like, how difficult is that for you?
So I definitely don't put too much pressure on myself. This is something fun that I want to keep it as something fun. I don't want to make it seem like it's, you know, I have to be doing it or that it's like necessarily a job. And so, you know, definitely just if I don't make a post one day, I don't make a post and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't get out there. And, you know, I definitely like put my schoolwork first. And so, you know, if I'm, you know, feel like I'm too busy or I can't handle it, then I definitely just like take a step back and just reel it in. And I'm like, you know, this is not something that I'm like want to be stressed about. And so I definitely just take that step. And
Right. So definitely like you control your business, not your business controls you.
Yeah,
I love that.
For sure.
So what have been some unique designs that you've done? Anything that's like stuck out to you?
Yeah, so I think for sure a lot of people with the custom orders definitely make them personable. Whether it involves their name, whether it involves something like their job. I've had one and it was like coffee scrubs and nurses gloves or something, I don't know.
Cute.
And for like a nurse, and I made one with like a basketball with like a J in the middle of it for this high schooler. Her mom got it for her for Christmas. So just like a lot of personal, you know, things that mean a lot to people.
Yeah, and that just makes the work all the more worth it, right?
For sure.
So where can people find your cups?
So like I said, I'm only on Instagram right now. So my Instagram handle is @Brianna's Cup Shop. It's BRYANNA as Cup Shop. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brianna, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us
thank
tonight.
you.
And sharing with us this amazing business that you've built for yourself.
Yes.
Hey, so don't go anywhere. We're going to go to a break real quick, but after that, we'll sit down with Professor Brockman to get the inside scoop about college dating.
We don't want our students to feel like they have to wait until they've graduated to start serving and meeting the needs of society. So we want students to have an opportunity to work on projects that meet real needs even while they're students in the program. Messiah students are exciting to work with because they understand that God has uniquely gifted them to do something, and they're excited to follow Him in that and to follow Him in their careers.
One of my best moments as a student here at Messiah was when I was traveling to Mexico with a collaboratory.
The collaboratory's business model is that it pairs student teams with either faculty mentors or outside professionals to work on systems that either care for the earth or help disadvantaged people around the world.
I learned so many amazing things about just cultural differences and how to adapt and work alongside, not just how to help someone else, but how to empower them to further their lives and also advance my academics in the process. So that is by far one of my favorite memories from Messiah.
Welcome back to YB Tonight. I'm Jessica Fannin, and I'm joined here by Professor Brockman, who's going to talk about the dating or the psychology of dating. So how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you and the Messiah community, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Yes, I'm so excited for this conversation. So I just want to know, like, tell me how you got into like the psychology of dating. That's a pretty interesting topic to get into.
Right. So when I was in graduate school, I had a great mentor, a great advisor, and one day he just said to me, you know, in the animal kingdom, it's the males that tend to be more ornamented, but with humans, it tends to be the females, and so that's sort of how it started. So I actually started studying how women dress, well, how men and women dress to attract a mate. And what I found was that with the women, especially when there were a lot more women than men, that during historical times, when we did have more women than men, the fashions were a lot brighter, more form-fitting, more patterned, and that just led me down the road of studying dating behavior, and especially when we have certain ratios, more men than women or more women than men.
Okay, so this sounds a lot more similar to like what happens with animals too, like the way that like animals interact. Does that have like a correlation to like this, like the ratios of like more males to females?
Well, when I started looking at the research, what I found was that it seemed to be the males that wanted to impress the females more. So it was the males who tended to be more colorful. So peacocks are the male species of that bird. The peahens are the females, and the peacocks have the really brightly colored tails. The peahens don't. They're very drab. So it seemed to be the males, for the most part, that wanted to stick out and try to attract the attention of the females. And I think in the animal kingdom, it's mostly even. But there are certain situations with humans where it's not, the ratios are a little bit skewed.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting. So what has been the most interesting part about studying like the dating of psychology in terms of like how it affects like college?
Right. So I love studying it at college, I think, because I just love this atmosphere. So at colleges, and a lot of people don't know this, there are, at 80% of the colleges in the United States, there are more women than men. And at 50% of the colleges in the US, there are fewer than 80 men for every 100 women. And when you have ratios that are skewed like that, you start to see some very interesting, very clear patterns in terms of the dating. So when you do have a lot more women than men, there tend to be shorter, the relationships tend to last a shorter amount of time. There tend to be fewer long-term relationships and more short-term relationships that may last a month, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So in terms of colleges, when you have ratios that are that skewed at so many colleges, it becomes very interesting for dating at colleges.
I definitely saw that myself when I was like looking at the demographics of colleges. I noticed that there were so many more like women than men. And like what kind of effects does this have on the dating in college?
Right. So again, because the ratios are so skewed, and usually the schools that do have more men tend to be more technical colleges, more science-oriented engineering colleges. Some of the military colleges, they have more men than women. But again, 80% of the colleges, there are more women than men. And so what we see is that there tend to be not enough men for the women. So there aren't as many long-term relationships. And I think, too, with the women, it begins to affect their self-esteem. And they think, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I find a long-term relationship? Or why can't I find a boyfriend? And it's not their fault. It's just that the numbers are not in their favor.
Right. So along with like the short-term relationships being a trend, what other trends do we see with a skewed ratio when there's more men or more women than men?
Right. So in that case, the women are trying to do things to get attention so that they can be noticed. So whether it is the way in which they dress or whether it's the way in which they behave, more outgoing, more boisterous, or it could even be, I think sometimes women will maybe engage in some short-term mating tactics, maybe advance the relationship in a physical sense a little bit faster than they might feel comfortable.
So you'd say they speed up like the relationship and how like the pace of the relationship.
Especially the physical aspects of the relationship, and I think a little bit more than they might feel comfortable in order to get that attention.
Okay. So what other psychological effects does this ratio have on women when there's more women than men?
So I think, unfortunately, when they do speed things up physically, it can, again, have detrimental effects in terms of their self-esteem. I think sometimes women think, oh, if I maybe engage in more physical behaviors, then maybe this person will like me more, when in fact that's not really, especially when there's a lot more women than men, that's not necessarily what will get you a long-term mate. So it's actually best to pull back on some of the physical aspects, because then if somebody wants to spend time with you, then you know that maybe they're around more for the long term versus just a short term time period.
So what are some like common mistakes that students can make in a relationship?
I think, again, and I'm focusing on the women more because I think it's the women that tend to have more difficulty with dating because there are so many more women than men. And so again, it's just engaging in the physical aspects of a relationship a lot faster and a lot more intensely than they might feel comfortable, again, because they think that this is what will attract the attention of the men at college. So again, it's best to pull back and see if they want to spend, if they really like you, they'll spend time with you. And that's a pretty good indicator that somebody is in for more of a long-term relationship than a short-term relationship.
Right.
And so I think the number one mistake is that women will tend to want a long-term relationship, but they will engage in short-term mating tactics.
Okay. And so what kind of effect would like having more men than women have? Like, why would they be more attentive to the women when there are more men?
Right. So typically it's women that tend to want to have the long-term relationships because it is I study from the perspective of evolutionary psychology, so looking at what our human ancestors had to deal with thousands and thousands of years ago. And so for women, especially if they were pregnant, it was much more likely that they would survive and their children would survive if they could find somebody who could stay around and provide them with food and shelter. And so women tend to have these psychological mechanisms for a long-term mate and a long-term relationship. And so I think because that's what women desire, when you have a lot more men than women, the women can be choosier and they can, the men will almost have to provide the women with what they want in a relationship. Otherwise, the woman might go to somebody else.
Better.
Right, because now the women, when there's a lot more men than women, now the women have their choice of the men, whereas when there's a lot more women than men, the men have their choice of women.
Right.
And that's not to say that men don't want a long-term relationship. I don't mean to imply that it's, short-term relationships for men. Certainly there are a lot of men that do, but again, from the perspective of evolutionary psychology, for men, it's about passing their genes on to the next generation. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to engage in short-term mating. And so that psychological mechanism is sometimes there with men as well.
Okay. And along with that, so what are some signs that somebody may not be ready for a relationship, not even just like a long-term or just short-term, but a relationship in general? What are some signs of that?
Right. So, I mean, I think if you're not able to communicate what you want in a relationship, if you're in the relationship for reasons other than you want to get to know the person, I think at that point you may not be engaging in a relationship for the right reasons. If you think that other people think that you should be in a relationship as well, your friends, your family members, especially I think sometimes as women go through their 20s, people will say to them, if they're single, they'll say, well, why haven't you settled down? Don't you want to get married? And there's a lot of pressure there. And I think if women aren't ready and they're just enjoying their life in terms of being single, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I think when you have external pressures like that, that's really not a reason to get into a relationship.
What would you say are some good reasons? Like, what are some good intentions to have?
Right. I think wanting to share parts of your life with another person, certainly at some point, if you feel like you want to get married and raise a family and have children, that certainly would be another good reason to be in a relationship. But I think it's important too to be, to know what you want and feel grounded in yourself before you go out and find somebody that you want to be with. You want to be sure of yourself and set the bar high, especially if you're thinking about a long-term relationship. I mean, one of the most important decisions that we'll make is who we choose to marry. It determines the trajectory of our life and the trajectory of our children's lives. And so it's an important decision and something that you don't want to rush into. And take your time with a little bit. Take your time a little bit with that decision as well.
Right. So have you seen any of these statistics to be accurate at Messiah, or these research findings?
Most of the information that I hear from students is anecdotal information, just information they might tell me. And I think sometimes I'll see the females saying, what's wrong with me? Why can't I find a boyfriend, or what's going on? And again, I say to them, it's the numbers. It's not your fault. It's not Messiah's fault either. That's just how it tends to be. Again, at 80% of the colleges, a lot more men coming out of high school will choose to go into a trade school, or they might start working. And so you do have fewer men that are going to college. And so, again, it's not Messiah's fault. It's not the fault of the other 80% of the colleges that do have more women. But I think it's important to be knowledgeable that that's the situation that you're going into. Because I think a lot of people go to college thinking, oh, I'll meet somebody in college and we'll get engaged ring by spring and we'll get married. And sometimes it doesn't happen that way. And I think and again, because of the numbers, it's not that there's anything wrong with the people. And so I think I sometimes see the females getting a little bit discouraged, what's wrong with me, or why can't I find somebody? And there's nothing wrong with them. Again, it's just that the numbers might not be in their favor here.
Right. Well, this has been great. I think I've learned a lot, and our audience has learned a lot. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show. So that's, all we have for tonight. Thank you for joining this YB Tonight's episode for YBTV. Tune in next Monday at 7 for more. On behalf of myself and the entire YBTV crew, happy Valentine's Day, Messiah University. Welcome back to YB Tonight. I'm